I imagine you've had some stories to tell. So let's move to stories.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you offline, right? This is a funny thing. So I get involved. One of the things that I do for my clients is I'll sit in on their sales meetings and help them make those as effective as possible. And I was sat in with we're talking to a company who my client had been working with for some time, but they were looking at whittling down the agencies that they worked with. And we went in and I asked this question, which I always ask in any sales meeting and would recommend everybody listening to this asks, which is this. When you think about the way you hire, if in 12 months' time it's going as well as you could imagine, what will have changed and how will you know? And Jackie, the client, the global head of this, global head of talent for this big life sciences company, thought about that question for a few minutes, paused for what seemed like forever. And then she said, look, there's three things actually. The first thing is stakeholder alignment. I was like, I'm really interested in what the other two are, but just tell me what you mean by that. She said, well, look, whenever we come to make a hire, there's at least two people who disagree on what we should pay, what we should be hiring, when we should be hiring it, and why we should hire it, and what that person needs to do. At least two people who disagree. It's like, right, what kind of impact is that having on the business? What kind of impact is that having on the hiring process? So we're slowing us down, means we're losing out on some of the best quality candidates, means we're settling for second choice, means sometimes we're having to pay more because the process has taken so long. We kind of do that knee-jerk hire thing where we end up paying more. I'm like, right, well, it sounds like this stakeholder alignment thing is a really big issue for you. Can I ask what you've done so far to try and fix it? And she said, well, we've done a few things internally, but to be honest, like kind of a bit short on ideas. And I said, okay, well, look, if we could come up with some ways together that we could help you get better alignment with your stakeholders when you come to brief roles and assess talent and those sorts of things, would that be helpful? She said, if you could do that for us, we'd absolutely give you the business. And then it just became a case of, right, how do we think about that? I didn't have the answers for that. My client didn't have the answers for that. I always talk about having a solution table and having an understanding of what your client needs and how you solve against that. I didn't have an answer for that question, but because we'd taken the time to ask Jackie, one, what is the metric? And she said it's stakeholder alignment. And then two, explore the impact of that with her. She was like, I trust these guys now to come up with some, to try and help. Like at least they're trying to help. And that was actually what won the business, was our willingness to understand the problem and try and help,